Okay, we've just hit 2 o'clock, so we'll just kick off. My name's Greg Rankin. I'm the Chief Superintendent of Operational Staffing and our Talent Acquisition or Recruitment area. So I'll be just leading through the presentations today. We've got a number of speakers here today that are going to be talking to you about what it is to be an operational firefighter and then rolling on into the process. So first of all, we're going to go through the acknowledgement of country. Like I said, we've got a number of guest speakers here. We're going to have the operational firefighters. Then we're going to look at the expectations of what we want out of you as firefighters or what we want to see. The whole recruitment process, Amy Hurst, our Talent Acquisition Manager, is going to run us through that. We'll go through the medical process. Then we'll roll on to what happens with the recruit training, and then we'll have a bit of time for questions at the end. We also have enough time if you want to ask any personal questions, and we'll reiterate that. You can come down. We have had a few embarrassing medical questions that we don't want everyone to share among the group, so we'll definitely have enough opportunity for people to come down to the front here and ask those kind of questions. A little bit of housekeeping too. If you don't know, if you need to take an urgent phone call, so I'll ask everyone to turn their phones to silent. If you need to take one, just step out through one of the exits. The toilets are at the rear behind the auditorium through the glass. There's a glass area straight through the back. Obviously, we've got the emergency exits. If there's any emergency, you'll hear all the tones in your warning, and there's a couple of operational firefighters here that'll lead us out. If they're going, just quickly follow behind with them. And in case they have to run down to the biggest fire Sydney's seen for a long while down the road, but hopefully that's all good. So I'll just go into... So first of all, we want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we are meeting on today, which is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and their connections to the land and waters of New South Wales. All right, so Fire Rescue New South Wales, what do we do? So the big motto that we is that we're prepared for anything, and then all the aspects of that we do. You'll hear from the operational firefighters today about just all the broad depth of things that we do. So it's more than just fighting fires is probably the big thing to remember and all that. Whoops, I'll go back. Sorry, I'll do this. So a lot of our, we do a lot of work in prevention and education. That's a really big part of what it is to be a firefighter. It's a big part of what we do. You've probably heard all the mottos. At the moment, we've got our Winter Fire Safety campaign, which is a really big thing. So prevention is better than the cure. So once the firefighters arrive, obviously times are not looking good. So we do a lot of that work in preparation and also what the firefighters are preparing for when there is an emergency. Obviously, our biggest, one of our biggest things that we're known as is fires and the breadth of fires, whether it's building fires, bush fires, commercial property fires, or the whole range of things that we do there in fires and vehicle fires. Rescue is another big part of our organisation. As you'll see from Peter and Brett, they're both rescue trained operators, and some of the other crew members here are rescue trained, but all firefighters are trained in rescue, and that's one of the first things you'll be doing when you go into the recruit school is learning about the rescue situation and how we do that. We've expanded over a number of years, and a couple of the firefighters will explain about some of the things we've gone into, but it gets so far is that the rescue skills are taken overseas and used in international deployments as well. Hazmat materials, a big part of what we respond to, how we operate at hazard material incidents. Fire Rescue New South Wales is the lead agency throughout the state. With fire, we have the Rural Fire Service, also in partnership with Fire Rescue, look after fire, but for hazmat, Fire Rescue look after that across the state. And insofar as that, if there is something in a remote, we have the ability to helicopter a crew in, and we've even done hazmat operations out to sea. Not the greatest thing to be doing, but getting helicoptered into ships, foreign ships that have a hazmat issue on board. Protecting the environment, a really big thing, and I suppose that rolls on from our hazmat capability, but one of the things that we do on that is to make sure that we don't make anything worse than what it is when we turn up. And a really big thing now is the protection of the environment and how we can do that better by stopping our chemical spills going into waterways and even our firefighting water that we use, and we've become a really big part on protecting the environment. And we work quite closely with the EPA on that. Counter-terrorism, always bubbling away, obviously brought to the fore in 2001, and it's grown in capability there, and we work really close with our national and federal agencies as far as counter-terrorism, and there's a lot of things that get done behind the scenes that you might not even know about, but Fire Rescue are there assisting the police in instances of that. We have our dignity protection, so when the Quad Summit was going on, we had a whole group of us ready basically to follow behind the cavalcade and be ready for any incident that may occur. So those kind of things are always going. Natural disaster and humanitarian relief, I made a little look into that, but I know Peter's probably got something to say about that in her discussion with you. But that's one of the things that we are moving. So from what we can do here in New South Wales, what we can do to support other agencies throughout Australia, and then what we do internationally. And part of that is just not rescue situations, it's also moving into how we can assist countries overseas or interstate about bringing a community back to their normal level of functioning. Medical response is something that we have, I'm not sure if there's any retained firefighters here today, but we have our retained or on-call firefighters, and a number of those stations are what we call community first responders, and they respond in areas where the ambulance mightn't have good coverage or might have a slower coverage, and we have a station there and we can support them. But every operational firefighter is trained in emergency life support, and obviously can provide assistance to the Ambulance Services New South Wales and any other person that might need assistance in the medical space. Even when we go to rescue situations, we apply our first aid or emergency life support skills in that part. Yep, so that's pretty much an overview of all the things that we've got there. Respect, integrity, service, courage are our core values, and obviously that's something that we take very serious. If you're going to apply for the job, just make sure they're rattling off your off pretty easily. Like most of the firefighters, that it's drummed into us. We know them. We don't. We always look to exhibit those values in everything we do. We're very visible. We have a very visible brand. Everyone knows a firefighter, so part of that is to make sure that our brand is always looking good, but for your own personal sake, these are the kind of the values that we're looking in people, and we want you to exhibit. It's not because you have to do them, it's because you want to do them, and that's the way you would like to be treated in any way. So that's the part of the respect. The integrity, obviously we're going to go into situations where we're going to get into people's lives that you as a general public, and depending on your background, there might be people at all different places, but we go into people's homes or we go into businesses and we see things that we must always look at, that's private and personal information, and we don't go and brand it on Bookface or InstaSnap or whatever, Tactic, whatever it is. We don't put all those things out on that space. We're looking at making sure that we have integrity and we act professionally in all the things that we do. Like I said, very well-known brand, and I think firefighters, are we still number 2? I think the Ambos have got us anyway, number 2. So that's, and that's, underpins everything we do. Service. Service is about service to the community, service to our fellow firefighters, and service to the government. We are paid government employees, so that's kind of the aspects of service. So we're there to provide a service to the community of New South Wales, and that basically underpins that. And those things, what I said that we do, we do all those things, the fire, the hazmat, humanitarian relief, all for that part of servicing the community. And courage. So, we're could throw it out there as a thing. What does courage mean? Well, courage is, yes, the courage to go into a fire and to do, the rescues that we form. It's also the courage to not go into a fire. There's sometimes when the situation is that dire that we're not going to put ourselves at risk and for the sake of something that's not savable, whether that's lives or property. But it's also the other aspect of the courage to make decisions and the courage to do things that you know are right and should be done. And that could be, when it comes back to, like I said, the respect part of making sure you do courageous things that should be the right way to do things. Courageous to call out bad behaviour. Courageous to support people that are less fortunate than us. So that's part of the values.
Fire Rescue, can you hear me?
Yeah, fire comms, rescue call 503, red, single car and behaviour. Release, you're free to go.
Oh, hey, we've got something in there. Yeah.
Got the one person there, Mark, on the driver's side. I can see that one. There we go. You happy?
Hey, stay where you are.
Just trapped in here.
We'll look after you and we'll get you out of here, okay?
You can come in. Mark's coming in to give you a hand, okay? He'll look after you. Just hang in there.
Hey, Nat. Say. Okay.
Got a broken ankle there.
Firefighter here's going to support you in, so just listen to him.
Hold down, there's another door. All right, I've got a victim.
All right.
We're here to protect what really matters.
Been a really brave girl today. Yes.
We help anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Chin strap on, protects our neck.
We are Fire and Rescue New South Wales, and we are prepared for anything.
All right, it gives me great pleasure to bring to the stage Station Officer Peter Miller to give you an overview of her life journey in Fire Rescue New South Wales. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I know it's the middle of the day for most of you, and most of you are probably at work, and I just want to say thank you for giving us your time. I'm not going to try and sell this incredible job to you, but I'm just going to try and highlight some really special things that our organisation can give you, and talk about some challenges that have been experienced, I guess, in a shift work emergency services industry. As Mr. Rankin said, my name is Peter, and I've been lucky enough to be with this organisation for almost half my life now. I joined a couple of years after school, not knowing really what I wanted to do. A couple of my friends travelled. I found a job that I didn't really love and just kind of had a few part-time jobs. And then a family friend came up to me and said, you know what, they're recruiting at the moment. Applications closed today. Why don't you apply? So at the time I thought, okay, this will be great. I don't really know anything about firefighting. And I put the application in, and about 6 weeks later I was at the recruit school. So it's kind of been a blur for me, but I think it all happened for a reason, and I've loved every moment of it. I'm currently at Manly Fire Station, and I'm extremely privileged to work with a really highly skilled, competent crew that have come with me today. And touching on diversity, they bring a lot of their own skills into our daily life. So in past lives before they were firefighters, we've got school teachers, mechanics, lifeguards and furniture makers. And all these sound so different to what we actually do. They have been so helpful in the range of incidences that we attend, from our community education to trauma, from people falling down cliffs, from major car accidents, rescuing cats that are stuck in kitchen cabinetry, and putting all our skills together as a team, we really are capable at anything that we have faced. So I feel really lucky. Start thinking about the skills that you have that can contribute to our team. So I think everyone out there doing a diverse range of jobs has something to offer. I've been really fortunate to gain experience in many areas of fire rescue. I've worked across many fire stations, and I've gained my qualifications in the rescue section, the hazmat, doing the aerial, like the big ladder trucks, the ladder platforms, urban search and rescue, which is part of the natural disaster humanitarian team. I've delivered training, instructing, coordinated courses, and I've also balanced that with some experience in non-operational roles. I've worked in health and safety, recruitment, operational staffing, and organisational development. And along the way, received training to support me doing all those roles. So I haven't just been thrown in the deep end. I've been given training in workplace safety, workplace training in assessing, leadership, and people management. And really, the opportunities are endless. They're the ones that I've just been able to take on myself. So if you're after opportunities, this is the career for you. Some of the highlights that I've had. I came out of the recruit school, and on my first night at the college, someone banged at the Rocks fire station door, and it was an Asian lady. She didn't speak English, and she was indicating that her daughter across the road was choking. And so my station officer, who was with me, said, "Oh, you go, because you've just done the training, you'll be better than us, so you run across and start, and we'll get the equipment and follow you." And it felt the longest 5 minutes of my life over there by myself. But the child was choking on a piece of cucumber and managed to dislodge it, and the baby, who was probably 6 months old, started breathing again, and it was just the biggest relief. And I remember the details so vividly, even though it was almost 20 years ago now. We had a false alarm, like a fire alarm, that was activated at the backstage of a field day concert on Sunset with the presets playing, and they came off stage and wanted to meet us and thank us, so that was pretty special. I got hung out to dry in an episode of Ready, Steady, Cook. I don't know if anyone remembers that show, but the media team at the time wanted to put some fire safety messages on this. You know, this is a good opportunity to get some messages across on fire safety. So Peter, if you can just be at the recording studio at 10 o'clock, wear your uniform. Do you have any allergies? I said, no, I'm happy to, eat anything. I didn't realise they were giving me a surprise bag of food which had some food in it that I couldn't pronounce. So I had to pull out the food, and the first thing was persimmons, which I'd never seen or heard or eaten in my life. And the second thing was spatchcock, and I was just like, I'm out. I don't know what to do here. But luckily I was paired with a good cook, and it was a disaster, but it was a good experience. I managed to fly on a C-17 aircraft, which is a military aircraft, to Tonga after they had a cyclone, working with the local community over there. And we really made a difference. Only 4 people from New South Wales went, and we flew in just as the cyclone had finished and managed to connect with a lot of vulnerable communities over there that hadn't had food or water for in a long time. So that was a really special time for me. The 1920 bushfires, you can all probably remember. It also feels like yesterday. I was on an appliance, and we got sent to this town past Kangaroo Valley that the fire had already passed, but they wanted us to get in the truck and try and beat the fire to the next town, and it had already passed. And we finally made it to the next town where the fire was just about to come over the top, and we managed to save, lots of houses along there. So that was also pretty special. I went to a false alarm in the city once on Boxing Day, and I was in the lift with this guy who was looking pretty fit, and I was asking him what his plans were for Boxing Day, if he's spending it with the family. He said, "Oh, no, I'm actually playing cricket today." I was thinking, oh, that's a weird thing, but okay. And then when I got out, someone came up to me and was like, "You were in the lift with Adam Gilchrist?" I was like, yeah. Made an idiot of myself. And as Mr. Rankin said, a lot of the natural disaster stuff that we're experiencing here in Australia and overseas has really increased over the past few years. And I'm fortunate enough to have been involved in that space, training people. Recently, all my peers went to Turkey, and they made a real difference over there. So the work that we're doing here, we serve our state, we serve our communities, but it's also not limited to here. If you keep on progressing through your career, there is so many opportunities. But saying all these amazing things and this amazing career, there also has been some challenges. So as you probably all know, that we do shift work. Currently, our shifts are 24-hour shifts. That means we eat together, live together, train together for 24 hours. Where one person goes, we all go. And, sometimes you love the people we work with and sometimes you don't, and that can be challenging. You can live in a state of tiredness. You know, you get home after 24 hours, and if you've been on the go physically working the whole time, it is really tough to back up with your family and anything else you might have on that time. Last week we spent the day doing a hazard reduction burn, and then during the night we got sent to the fire around the corner here at Randall Street. So we got back to the station 26 hours after we'd started. The flip side to this is that we work the 2 shifts every 8 days. So our working week is condensed. We're still doing the same amount of hours that everybody works in their working week, but it is condensed. And also it gives us time to recover and maintain our own mental health and well-being between the shifts. And Fire Rescue have a lot of resources available for our mental and physical health of firefighters, and I'm sure that you'll hear a lot about that. Another challenge for me is the family commitment. So I've got 2 young kids at the moment, and shift work can be challenging. But again, we have a very stable roster, so I'm able to plan my leave around my roster and my annual leave groups that you can look into the future as far as you can, pending that you don't change shifts in the meantime. So I can plan a holiday now for 2030 if knowing that I'm still on D platoon, which it would be very rare to change unless I requested to change. And that stability has allowed me to organise childcare, babysitting and attending their activities that I want to attend. It also allows me to make time to be with my family and invest in my relationships. We have a saying here at Fire Rescue, and that is family first, and it's a methodology that we believe that not only with my family at home, but with each other. Our relationships are really important to each other, and we have the respect, courage, integrity and service that we all share. For an example, I would say with my children, if I'm at work and the school rings me and says, Peter, Aubrey's sick, I know that I can ring my inspector with my leave entitlements and he can say, no problem, you go get them, and he will cover me. If I'm planning a holiday and it can't fall in my leave group, I have the option to find someone on my shift and we can swap leave groups. And we also have other leave entitlements. So we work within an award, and we are really well supported through that, and there is room to work if you have commitments. So it's not a very rigid, structure for that. After you've done your first 2 years, which is like an apprenticeship with Fire Rescue, you have to become a firefighter to a qualified firefighter. There are so many opportunities for you. You can go into training roles, into day work roles. You don't have to be at the fire station all the time. But a lot of us choose to because that's what we love doing. Another challenge that I've had and I still work through is self-doubt. Public speaking is another thing that makes me very nervous. I've always thought, especially when I started out, that I'm not as good as my peers. And I look back and in those early years, I was so fit and I was probably a lot smarter than I am now. And I think, oh gosh, I've really let myself slip. But it wasn't until my first house fire, a month after coming out of the recruit school, I was in Redfern and I was with a crew I didn't know, and we got called to a house fire, and the boss asked me to go inside and up to the level that the flames were coming out the balcony, and I was by myself. He sent me in by myself with a hose line, said, I need you to get up there, I need you to search that bedroom, I need you to put the fire out. And that was it. And I just was like, I looked around me and thought, okay, I'm really doing this. And I went in. I can't really remember what I was thinking, but I did it, put the fire out, came back down, and he didn't really speak to me. I thought, oh gosh, I really stuffed that up. And it wasn't until maybe a month later he wrote me this beautiful email saying how proud he was and what a great job I'd done during that job. So I guess that sparked in me that, I can do this and I am good enough, and it has encouraged me to keep training and to keep working hard and support those around me to also share the same need for wanting to be the best they can be. Throughout my career, and as you'll see, we have lots of like-minded peers. So we've made sporting teams. When I joined, there was a swimming team. There's the rugby team, the soccer team. I've travelled to police and fire games. We've put teams in the Spartan and Tough Mudder events, the MND stair climb, and this is just to stay fit, motivated and engaged with other people. On top of being the proactive at work, training and learning and motivating others around me, I've also tried to display fire rescue values every day at work and also in my personal life. And as Mr. Rankin said, if these values fit who you are, then this job is for you. Visit stations, speak to firefighters, and do as much research as you can online around our vast capabilities to put your best foot forward. You'll never have the same day, and you'll love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. We're going to do Tony Bacani, but we've got a deployment going to Canada. Unfortunately, Tony's the person who's organising it, so he's actually giving an information session. So he might make it to us after, but we're going to move on. Whoops, gone the wrong way. To Brett Johnson. Come on.
Well, that's going to be a pretty hard one to, wow. I don't know if there's anything else to say, so thanks, Peter. No, that was a really good insight that Peter has given us on her journey and all of the experiences that you can have in this career. And I'm not really here to try to sell this to you. I know that I'm a second-generation firefighter, so I've been in the job coming up to 25 years. So I know it's hard to believe because I don't look that old, but thank you very much. But I want to talk to you about things that not a lot of us want to talk about. I want to talk to you about the difficulties. I want to talk to you about the challenges because it sells itself. This badge here has sold itself for the last 100 years. That's why we've always had thousands and thousands of people applying. That's why I know, and I've been part of this recruitment drive and campaign for maybe a decade now. And I want you to know that we all understand. Everyone who's here today understands what you're going through and understands the challenges and understands the competition that you're going through because of what this is. So all of those opportunities have just grown over many, many years, and since my father was a firefighter in the 60s and 70s, they just keep getting better. So the job just gets better. That's not the issue. The issue for all of you people is you're all sitting there going, I know, and I want that job. And that's really good. But what I want to tell you is to start really getting into that zone. The amount of people over the last decade that have rung me and said, oh, I think recruitment's coming up around about July. Is there any chance I can ring you then? It's too late then. If you really want this job, if you want the happiness that you see of firefighters, if you want to see that respect that we're so lucky that the community has given us, it's something that you've really got to immerse yourself in. If you want to compete with all of these people here, and I know we'll all be part of a team if you get through, but you're competing to get the privilege of wearing this badge. And it really is a privilege. So much so that, you know, it really hurts one of us if we're not living up to that standard, whether we've got that badge on or not, because I can guarantee you if you do get through this campaign and you become a firefighter, every one of your friends and family will know. All of them will know that you've got in because you're going to tell everyone, and everyone will be really proud of you as well. But from that moment onwards, that means that whether you've got this uniform on or not, people expect something of you. They expect you to be above what a normal person in society is, because the reality is it's a real privilege to put this uniform on. And it always has been and it always will be. So the type of people that I want in my station, on my truck, at my incidents, are the people that are not going to give that up. Are people that are there 24/7, whether they're at home with their families or they're here at the job, that they're above the community standards. And we really mean that, because if you're not above the community standards or you're not prepared to do that, you may as well give up now, because you're going to get caught out at some stage. At some point in your career, they're going to work you out. Other firefighters will call you out on it. So we all expect each other to pick each other up, to lift each other up, but again, to live above what this emblem stands for. And it's not about a person. It's not about I'm a good person because I'm a firefighter. It's about what that emblem has stood for so many years. all the lives that have been saved, all of the contributions, all the tireless hours. That's what a firefighter is. So, you know, backgrounds, like Peter was mentioning, we come from a whole lot of different backgrounds, and you don't have to be a stereotypical person what you have an image on some sort of movie of what a firefighter looks like. Now, I used to be a registered nurse and a childcare worker. I bet you didn't know that. So has that helped me? 100% it's helped me. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a bathtub with a blanket over the top of my head with a kid with his finger stuck in a plug singing, he's got the whole world in his hands, because I can do that, no problem. I know there's some other fireys that can't do that. That just wouldn't be inside them. But we needed me to do that at that time, so I'm stepping up to do that. This is the range of interest of people that we have in firefighting all over the world. But Fire and Rescue New South Wales is a really special spot. We're really, really privileged to be where we are. So half-hearted attempts of getting in is not good enough. Even when you get in, half-hearted attempts of being a firefighter is not good enough. So for the years and years that you will spend in this organisation, that doesn't stop. So if you're not prepared to be that well driven the whole time, save yourself the time and don't apply. So I'm not here to say, oh, it's the best. I know it's the best. We all know it's the best. We're really, really lucky. Those Ambos have got us. We used to have number one on the list, and what I want is to get back on that list. Why aren't we number one? I don't want people to come into this job and get on my truck and go, oh, wow, is that it? I'm done? No, we're never done. We're never, ever done. And that's what gives you the joy about making an improvement that last generation made. And what improvement can we make to make ourselves even better, because we're a privilege. We're the sort of organisation, when we drive down the street in a fire truck, that people wave to us. And you know how special that feels? Yeah, and we didn't do anything, and they're waving to us. That's something people have done in the past to put us in that position. So that's a privilege. So when we're at a party the next week or something, we're not bragging about how good we are. No, that's the emblem again. We want that drive. I want you to do that during this campaign, whether it be in your application, or whether it be during your physical aptitude tests, whether it be through your interviews, whether it be at the college, whether it be at the station. That whole time, for years and years to come, you really do need to keep that drive. That's the sort of people that we're looking for, because they're going to take us to the next level. We've also got some times, like Peter has mentioned, that are going to be challenging. It's not all shiny bells and whistles. There are going to be some really tough times. It's going to be really frustrating. It's going to be really sad. It's going to be tough to the point where you're going home to your family and going, I don't know if I can explain to you how tough my day was today. It won't go into the scope of what maybe they've done. So you shield them from that. That's part of being a firefighter. That's the reality. So there's going to be many incidents where you're going to see people hurt, people injured, people you may know, people that look like people that you may know. You're going to get yelled at some stage. Someone's going to yell at you, not because they don't like you, because they need something done really quickly. Do it now, do it now. So you've got to be able to adapt to all of that. This is what a firefighter's like. So there is a whole lot of paraphernalia that goes around, and I know we've got all some shiny photos and all of that sort of thing, but if you're not prepared to get your hands dirty, to get right into it, to be cold at night, to be wet, to be upset, to have to pick someone up, then this is not the job for you, because there will be challenges. And I don't want someone eventually coming to the station and jumping on the truck with me and going, wow, I didn't expect this. It's a pretty tough night. Yeah, it is a tough night. We don't often get that, because we don't often share that with people. And one of the worst questions I get asked as a firefighter in the last quarter of a century is, what's the worst thing that you've seen? I don't want to share that with you. I really don't, because it's not nice what I've got sitting in here. But that's part of my job. It's what I'm really proud of. There's some really nice things that we've done, really successful things that we've done, but there's some really tragic things as well. Some really horrible things that you'll see. There's parts of society that you'll see in firefighting that you won't see generally in your normal job. Behind those closed doors, what happens? We have to gain entry into people's personal lives when they don't expect us to be there. We're going to see them in states that no one ever expects to be seen in. And we've got to be there and be that shining light. You could be that last person that they talk to before they pass. That's the reality. So I don't want to keep the shining light there. That's easy. I'll talk about that every day of the week. There's so many funny stories and so many positives, but I also want you to be realistic. I want you to understand that you are joining to be a firefighter, an operational firefighter with Fire and Rescue New South Wales. You will sweat. You will get hot. Your heart will race. At times, you will doubt yourself. We all do. But you will have a family that will pick you up. You need to trust in the system. You need to trust in your family. You need to trust in that station. You need to know that we all have a boss. You'll hear us call Mr. Rankin or Sir. We don't call Mr. Rankin by his first name. There's a good reason for that. It's because there is a certain reason why we have a rank structure, because if something happens very quickly now and we need someone to do something, I'm going to ask you to do it as a station commander, and I expect it to be done. There is no choice of argument. There is no, hey, listen, I might think of a different way to do this, and how about we have it? And there's no time to do that. So this is the job of a firefighter. So my job here was to take a little bit of tarnish off it, and I don't feel bad about it at all, because what I want you to know, it is the best job in the world, and people have made it the best job in the world, and we're here to try to improve that, and we want you to come in and improve what we've done for it. So make sure you're a team player. Make sure you can follow instructions. Make sure if you are not giving 100%, don't just walk out now. There's no point. And I know it is extremely competitive because the positives that come with it far outweigh any of the negatives. Okay, so we'll be here a little bit later on if anyone's got any personal questions as well. So I don't want everyone to go into shock because of what I've just said. But I am here to tell you, I'd rather you listen to me now than you get to my truck after you've gone through the college and go, great, is it all happy donuts and movies? You go, no, it's not. The reason you don't hear a lot about that is because we don't want to share it with the general public. You'll share it with your family. You'll share it with the organisation. We've got a great support system. But there is a side to it you've got to be realistic about. It's going to be tough, but it's so awesome at the same time. All right, thank you very much.
That's the yin and the yang, we call that. No, well done, Brett. Brett, as you can tell, he's got that real passion and I love him for it, so well done. You can call me Flash now and again if you want. Right, so Tony's not here, so I can't do Tony's speech, so I'll give a bit about myself. All right, so I've been in the organisation 36 years. I've sort of let myself go, put on 20 grams in that 36 years. So really, in a way, the physical aspect is there the whole time. I'm still as passionate. I'm still driven. I work in operational staffing recruitment, but I have only been there for 2 years. I was operational for 20 years at different fire stations. I was at the fire station just down the road here for 12 years. I've worked all through Sydney, but the opportunities, just like Peter and Brett and the firefighters here have been exposed to, has been so good. I've taken opportunities as they're presented. So there's so many aspects in the organisation. I've worked at our education and training. I've worked in our capability area. I've deployed. I was on that Turkey deployment, so I got over there as a 56-year-old. So really, I never thought that it'd occur. I went into that deployment. It was such a learning experience. Every day is a learning experience. I still haven't stopped learning. They're the kind of things the organisation. When I joined, I worked in the bank, so I think you've got a better credentials than me. I was in the bank, same deal. My dad was a firefighter. All his mates were firefighters, and they said, "Oh, Greg, I think it's your destiny going." So again, where I was sitting with you, I remember the exam. There was 8,000 people when I sat my exam. Probably about the same number, about 100, 120 people. So I thought really lucky to have got through that selection process. So obviously we had about 5,000 last year, and we only needed about 120 people. So it is going to be competitive. All right. Now my role is sometimes the bad news person. all right? In fact, if you get to me and you've gone through all the recruitment team and you've rung every one of them individually and gone through Amy, and then I give you the call, it's usually, look, we've tried everything, but unfortunately you haven't made it, all right? So there is going to be, unfortunately there'll be a bit of disappointment, all right? I'm just sort of managing expectations here. It's, like Brett said and Peter, it's one of those jobs that we try. I know a few of my mates that are in now, they took 3 or 4, 5, 6 goes to get in. It is because of that reputation, that part, where there are other organisations that are struggling to get people to come even into an information session. But we are privileged in a way that we have so many good candidates that apply. And unfortunately, there's those kind of people that are really in any other job would probably smash it out of the park and get in. But we do have a set ceiling of a number of people that we can ultimately take through, so hence why the different stages. So, look, you'll learn all that, how it goes through. So like I said, my journey has been, one of just great opportunities. I've deployed, like the team that's going tomorrow to Canada, I deployed to Canada for the bushfires. I've been to Singapore twice. I've been to New Zealand for training courses. I've been to every state and territory. So these are other opportunities. Like Brett and Peter and the crew, we've seen some really bad things in the stuff that we don't usually go home and talk about. We talk about the funny stories when we get home to our families. I don't really talk about the things, and I get that question too, what's the worst thing? Well, the worst thing was the last thing I saw, Turkey, there was 45,000 people killed in that earthquake, so do you reckon there wasn't some tragedy over there? So, you can't dwell on that. And so resilience is a really big part of being a firefighter, the resilience. And that's not to say that you don't ask for help. When I first joined, the help was a schooner down the pub. Let's go and have a drink after that one. Now we realise that talking to someone and being on that, and we have a lot of peer supporters, those kind of things are available to us. We have so many support mechanisms available to firefighters. It is really good now compared to when I first joined. I think half the people were broken and busted that I was working with because they'd seen such tragedy and never had so much support. But that's definitely changed. We're an organisation now that, like Brett said, is a really big family, and we are all part of that. All right, so I don't know what Tony was going to talk about, but obviously he had a lot of other really good jokes and anecdotes and stuff that I haven't been able to inflict into you. So you've missed out on that. We might be able to catch it up on YouTube. All right, so what are we looking for? Well, obviously, I just talked about that resilience. Brett spoke a lot about the self-awareness aspect. So obviously, knowing who you are and what you're about as well. Obviously, having good communication skills. We all talk about it. It's funny, she speaks all the time. I don't know what she's worried about public speaking, but anyway, I've seen her talk on many occasions. So, but being the communication skills. So I think both Brett and Peter talked about, you're going to go into situations. We have a diverse range of cultures in New South Wales and around the world. You can imagine, my experience with, I was in Turkey. My role was to coordinate all the other international teams. I had a Turkmenistan team, and I had them they spoke Russian or a type of Russian. I had an interpreter that I had to say something. They would translate it into Russian, and then back to me through another interpreter the Russian interpreter didn't know English, so I had to go to a Turkish interpreter and then back to me. So you can imagine the communication skills that took of doing that. But when people are under stress, it's even harder. So the firefighters would know that when they go to situations and people are under stress, you need to be able to communicate clearly and also have self-awareness about what you're saying to them and how that's coming across. Because we might go to these tragedies, every day, but for the person that you're dealing with, this is their tragedy of their whole life that they'll probably talk about for years to come. All right, so that's part of that. The communication skills is also communicating effectively in the written as well as the spoken word. How do we do that? And reflecting on, and I think everyone's probably been that, before you push the send on the email button, just read it again to see if the communication is going to come through clear before you tell me off or, one of my other colleagues. Just read it again. Oh, yeah, I've told him to nick off on the right way. Commitment to service and helping others, engaging with the public. All right, we talked about community education, and prevention is a really, really big part. So after the fire you saw down the road here, what did our teams do? We sent out a massive team to go out then and check every other building around that area and just see how their fire protection. We don't have the resources to go to every building every day and check if they're all running. But here was an opportunity where we could knock and have a look. And the fire safety team have picked up a number of issues that need to be addressed. The same thing with the firefighters. They have a building, house fire, and we usually go left and right of the house fires and talk to the neighbours and residents about that and see if they have their working smoke alarms or if they have an escape plan ready. Is there anyone with disabilities that might need an additional something in their escape plan? So they're the kind of things that we do it because one of the good things that we did, the tragic circumstances of the Quakers Hill nursing home, we were a big push Fire Rescue of an advocate for putting sprinklers throughout all nursing homes throughout New South Wales. So these are the kind of things that are happening in the background that probably don't make the sexy news stories about how we rescued, people or cats or dogs. Team players, Brett, I won't be able to, he's said that quite well, and so did Peter, about how we need to be really great team players, and also the ability to discipline. We are a sort of a paramilitary service. It's true, I've got a couple of nicknames. Back in the office, we'll have our own nicknames and we'll do it. Out in the field, it's a really strict rank structure where we must listen to the person who's going to call the shots because it's a life and death situation sometimes. And I had a really great example of that, sort of like Peter's, that first job I went to, an old SO station officer grabbed me and said, "Mate, I don't think we should be going into this building." He pulled me back and said, "Just stand there. I don't think I've got something wrong about this." I reckon I counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The roof collapsed. North Rocks, I still remember it. North Rocks Primary School fire. The whole roof collapsed, and my mate that was with me, we both looked at each other, looked at him, and went, "Oh, thanks. That's why you've got the pips at that time to tell us what to do." Physically fit. As I said, I put on those 20 grams. I've been working like hell to get them off. But one day, the team here, the fitness team, you'll have Rish and Body here, Brendan, who will take you through that. We play touch footy together. We do all those things. So maintaining your physical fitness, even though I'm not operationally still going out, there's still an element that I need to be operational fit to do the deployments of going to Canada or the earthquakes or even responding to fires as a senior officer. So we do that all the time. There's great gym equipment in all stations. Keep yourself up, but we're looking for those people that are fit because when it comes down to it, the physicality of the job can be really stressful at times, and you want to be on your game. Respectful of others, and regardless of the background and differences. I think that goes without saying, doesn't it? That's part of that respect, integrity, service, courage kind of part of that. We had the ability to exercise self-discipline and sound judgment. Okay, classic for, and don't tell me who that SO was that sent you in by yourself, but anyway, we won't go into that. Many years ago, obviously, and he's probably retired. But what we have to be doing, like that situation I just told you, is know when to not go in is just as hard a call sometimes as going in. And also, you will work autonomously or just you and your partner, and you've got to have those decisions. So you'll have a boss that may give you a certain number of directions to do something, but then when you get in there, your training skills and knowledge and experience will come to the fore, and you'll have to assess the situation yourself. It also comes down to, and I'll use a really, and I'm not rescue trained, I'm like these guys. We went to a car accident. There was a lady, she had a fairly severe broken leg. She was an older lady. I was talking to her, she was fine, I was keeping on, telling her, the ambos was Amy, tell her not to look down. I said, yeah, all right, we've got this. I could see why, it wasn't looking too good down there. Oh yeah, you're all right. Unbeknownst to me, someone comes over the top of me and goes, oh my God, look at it, look at the leg, She looked down, bang, instant shock, ambos and Nelly doing CPR. So, these are the kind of things that we need to be aware of and what's going on in our surroundings. A real learning curve for me on that one to manage. Don't be so task focused that I don't know what's happening around me. And so that comes too is about knowing the people and everything that's going on. Willingness to undertake shift work. I think the team's already talked about that. You are going to work weekends. I did my first, I think it was 6 years working either Christmas Day or New Year's. So be prepared. They're the things you're going to have. And it was just a common thing. You're going to be working Christmas Day and New Year's, all right? You're going to be working Easters. You're going to be working... There's going to be a party on. Sorry, can't go. There's going to be some things on. Yes, we have flexibility and we can do that, but someone's got to come to work. So the Saturday night when the Dragons are playing, you're better off being at work anyway. If anyone's a Dragon supporter. And the flexibility about your work location. You will all, no matter where you come from, I can tell you right now, you're going to be in the Sydney area. All right? You're going to do Sydney area. The lists to go up and down the coast are growing exponentially. We have 33% of our staff now, and it's growing, that live outside of the Greater Sydney area. So do the math. We've got 100 stations in Sydney and probably 20 or 30 outside, permanent stations. So the chances of, if you live outside of the area, the chances are you will be travelling for a while. Now, obviously, the beauty of the shift work is that you have a lot of time you can travel up and forwards, but I'm just managing the expectation, because a lot of people, even after this, I do live at Coffs Harbour. Do you reckon, what's the list like? I said, mate, I don't know, 15 years. And really? And I go, well, the last group we sent up, they were 12 years. It took them to get back to that area. All right, and as I said, that's exponentially growing as more people live outside. Now, you can travel back and forwards, but just be prepared. Sydney is probably where you're going to, will be where you get posted. And there is opportunities at non-shift work stations to go out there very, very quickly. If you want to go to Broken Hill, I reckon we could get you out there in about 35 seconds. All right, so in fact, anyone Broken Hill wants to come over, we've got the express curve over here. All right, so that's the nuts and bolts and all that. Obviously, you can ask us individual questions. You can hit me up after this and find out what are the lists for every station. I'll give it to you, 10 to 12 years minimum. All right, the team's already told you about the shift work. Just on that, we do work a 24-hour roster, but our actual default roster, and that means in the award, what we signed up is actually the old 10-14. Now, we haven't worked predominantly since 2015. We've worked the 24-hour shift. Our default roster is still the 2 days on, 2 days off, but we do work a 24-hour roster, and there are flexibility arrangements about a number of different rosters. And we do have some stations, if it suits you, that work Monday to Friday, but generally they're outside of the Greater Sydney area, and they're either Metro North, which is up at the Newcastle and that way, or in other parts of the state. Goulburn is one as well. So we've got the 4 platoons, 24 hours on, 24 off, 24 on, 5 days off, all right, and then back and rotate around like that. Peter talked about the set annual leave groups, but there is flexibility. You can swap if you find someone that can swap, but essentially you are on a set leave group. So once again, there's your block of leave. No, that's your leave. And we have to do that because we need a minimum number of staff to turn up every day to work. And if we don't have set leave groups, then that becomes a bit hard. But there is a little bit of flexibility of that, but just I'm giving you hard, cold facts. Yep. Yeah, that's how you... So you get 2 lots of annual leave, and that's 64-week cycle. So quite good. Not as good as the teachers, but, we're close. All right. I'm now going to have the great pleasure of passing you on to Amy Hurst, who's a manager of talent acquisition. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, Greg. Hello, everybody. My name is Amy. I am the manager of the talent acquisition team. What I'm going to do in this next section is talk to you about the recruitment and selection process. So probably less exciting information than what you've heard from Peter and Brett and Greg about their careers as firefighters. But it is really important information for you to know before you decide to put an application in, so that you understand what the process looks like and what is going to be asked of you throughout the process. We also have the talent acquisition team, or some of them here with us today. If you want to put your hand up and give a wave, we've got Natalie, Marianne, Lamisha, Renee and Karen. And you will no doubt, if you do put an application in, be talking to one or all of us at any point throughout the process. So if you have questions at the end, please feel free to come down and have a chat to us. So you've heard about the variety of the role of a firefighter, all of the various things that you would be exposed to and all of the different skills that you would need to become a successful firefighter. So it makes sense that the recruitment process that we put you through needs to be as robust as the role is. So it is a long process and it is competitive. There's lots of different stages, and I'll talk you through what all of those stages are. But it's essentially designed to look at a range of different qualities and skills and capabilities that will make successful firefighters. So we look at things like your skills, your competencies, your motivation, your commitment, your personality traits and your attributes, and also things like your values. So making sure that all of that aligns to what the role requires. It can be overwhelming. It's really important that you understand the end-to-end process so you can kind of keep track of where you are. My best piece of advice is to take one step at a time. You know, make sure that you're getting through each step and focusing on what you need to do. Don't get too carried away in the later stages. Take it one step and one day at a time. The recruitment process is just as much about us as an organisation finding the right people for our roles, but it's also about you as candidates making the decision that this is the right role for you. And that's why it's really important to attend sessions like this, and, you know, hats off to you guys for making the time to come to the session to hear from our firefighters and to really reflect on that. I encourage you to, you know, after the session, reflect back on what you've heard and really think about whether this is the right role for you and it's the right environment for you, because that's what this recruitment process is about as well, making sure that we both fit each other. The recruitment process in a nutshell, we will go through each of these steps, but this is a handy slide. This information is available in our candidate information pack, which is on our website, which I'll share with you later, so you don't need to write it all down. But essentially we start with online psychometric testing. Oh, actually, one step before that, the ad goes live on the 3rd of July. That's the date that you all want. So the applications will be open on the 3rd of July through to the 17th of July. From there, you'll be asked to complete some online psychometric testing. After that, next step is an online video interview. From there, you will need to come into our headquarters and complete some supervised verification testing. Then you do your physical aptitude test, or PAT for short, followed by the assessment centre, which I'll go through in a little while. From there, if you're successful at that point, you then get placed into what we call our candidate pool of successful candidates. You can be there for quite a while at that point, because it's that pool of candidates that we draw from to then fill our recruit training classes for the next 12 to however many months it takes to exhaust that list. So once you're pulled from that list to say, yeah, we want to consider you for the August class, then you will go and do your medical assessment, and then you will have pre-employment checks done at that point, which is things like your reference checks and criminal history check. So there's sort of that waiting bay in the middle of the process. So it can be quite a long wait, but you don't do the medical and those pre-employment checks until you're being considered for a recruit class at the time. Okay. Then once you get through all of that, you're offered a place in the 14-week training program. Okay, so the application, a couple of things that you need to know about eligibility and essential requirements. So the things that you have to be eligible to apply. You need to have Australian citizenship or be a permanent resident or have New Zealand citizenship. You need a HSC or equivalent level of education. So that can include a Cert 3 in any discipline, a trade certified certificate, or 3 years service as a retained firefighter with Fire and Rescue New South Wales. So all of those things count as HSC equivalent education. You need to be vaccinated for COVID-19 to be employed with Fire and Rescue. And you also need to have a New South Wales driver's licence with no more than 7 demerit points accrued on an unrestricted licence, or no more than 1 demerit point accrued on a P2 licence. So your minimum licence is P2, which is your green Ps. And those are the demerit points limits that we will accept. So if you can tick the boxes to all of those things, submit your application online on the 3rd of July. The ad will be posted on our new careers page, which we have this year. So you'll find that at careers.fire.nsw.gov.au. That is where you'll submit your application. And you'll need to upload some paperwork with your application. So my advice is to start getting that ready now so that you're not wasting that 2-week advertising period on getting everything together. So you'll need to be providing a resume, your current driver's licence, your current driving history record. We're going to ask for a screenshot of your demerit points from the Service New South Wales app. You need a passport or a birth certificate supplied, anything to qualify your education certifications, and proof of COVID-19 vaccinations. So you'll be asked to upload all of that with your application. So probably good to get it all sorted now is what I would be doing. Another requirement for you to be aware of is the MR licence requirement. So this is a change this year. So if you have applied in previous years, important for you to understand the difference here. So you aren't required to have an MR licence to submit your application, but there will be an expectation that by the time you are placed in a recruit class, you will have gotten it. So you need to get your MR licence at some point throughout that process, and that will be at your cost. So you can decide how early you get that. It's obviously a licence that you can use. It'll be your licence, so it's not necessarily just specific to this campaign. If you want to wait until you know that you're successful to get it, well, then that's your decision. If you want to get it earlier and make sure that you're ready, well, then that's up to you as well. But you will need your MR licence before we can consider placing you in a recruit class. So it's beneficial if you have it, at least by that sort of assessment centre stage towards the end of the process. Okay, so once you've submitted your application, everybody who meets that essential requirement will then be sent links to complete their online psychometric testing. So you do this at home online. You'll be given 4 days to complete those assessments, and there'll be 3 tests that you'll be asked to do this year. There's a cognitive ability test, an emotional intelligence test, and a mechanical reasoning test this year. So starting with the first one, cognitive ability is all about the ability to solve problems, to think critically, to think strategically, and to use and apply new information. So if you think back to that example that Greg was talking about exercising judgment, problem solving, that's how that relates back to the role. We know that those with high cognitive ability are able to perform new tasks more accurately and more efficiently. They can make decisions more efficiently and quicker, and they can use reasoning skills to problem solve at a much higher level. It's a timed test which takes 15 minutes, so it's not overly onerous, and there'll be 50 questions in that test, which include a combination of verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, and also abstract reasoning questions. The emotional intelligence test, which is called a Modify, is the second one that you'll do. Emotional intelligence is actually really critical to the role of a firefighter. So those with high emotional intelligence will be the sorts of people who are a lot more aware of their own emotions and their own emotional reactions and understand emotional reaction in others. So you can understand, if you think about that role of a firefighter and all of the scenarios that Peter and Brett and Greg have shared, you can understand why those sorts of skills are really important to be able to have and to be able to apply in the role of a firefighter. Those with high EI are likely to be a lot more resilient, a lot more tolerant of stress, because they understand their own emotional reaction to things and they understand other people's emotional reactions to things, even if it might be different to their own. So that's how it links back into the role. So the Modify is an interactive assessment. So you need to, it's assessing things like your perception of facial expression and comprehension of emotional management. So if I feel this way and then this happens to me, how am I likely to feel after that? So it takes 20 minutes, this test. It is timed, and there's 3 mini assessments within that 20 minutes. So you can have little breaks in the middle. And then finally, the mechanical reasoning test. This is a short ability-based test which measures the ability to learn how to operate and maintain equipment and machinery. So basic mechanical principles. You don't need to have any experience in mechanics. It's just about that understanding of mechanic principles and being able to apply that to the information around you. Again, this one's a timed test, 15 minutes, and there's 30 questions in this one. So you'll complete those 3 assessments online. You'll receive the link once you've submitted your application. What I wanted to talk to you about is a little bit about cheating behaviour, or what we call negative test-taking behaviour, because it's really important to flag up front with you. Because candidates, when we're doing unsupervised remote, what we call remote online testing at the beginning of a campaign, candidates can be and will be tempted in those early stages to cheat and try to have assistance to complete those tests. The reason why you shouldn't do it, there's a couple of reasons why, but I think the most important ones is that you will get caught if you do, and I'll talk to you about what we do at that later supervised testing stage to explain what happens there. But, you know, we've talked about the values of the organisation. We've talked about how important integrity is to fire and rescue. So what I would put to you guys is if you're tempted to cheat or you do engage in that sort of behaviour, I would be asking yourselves why, and if you really think that this is the right environment for you, if that's the path that you're led down. So you need to think about your own integrity, your own professionalism, and how that really relates to the environment you're asking to put yourself in, because it starts there, okay? The question banks we have in each of the tests, they're really robust, they're randomised. Not everybody will get the exact same questions. There's thousands and thousands of questions in those testing banks. So even if you try to cheat, it's really not going to improve your final test score anyway. So you need to trust your own ability, trust the process, practice and prepare, absolutely, and I'll talk to you about how you can do that, but absolutely no to cheating or trying to get assistance or to work around the system. So what you can do, preparation is not cheating, absolutely prepare, study, do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable and confident before you attempt the tests. Various websites out there offer free practice tests for psychometric testing, and I've put a couple up there for you. So Criteria Corp is the company of the tests that we actually use. So you can go to their website and try some practice tests. There's also practiceaptitudetest.com has got a couple of good ones, and the psychometricinstitute.com.au is a good one to try as well. It's all free. I definitely don't recommend you pay anyone or any organisation for tips on these sorts of things. It's your call if you do, but there's lots of free resources out there that you can use to practice. If you're not a big reader, I would also recommend that you start increasing how much you read, because your processing speed in these tests is something that can really help you. So if you're not a big reader, start reading more now and try to increase that processing and comprehension speed, because that does really help. And psychometric tests are not tricks. I know people think that they are, but they're not, particularly these ones. It's all ability-based. There's right and wrong answers for everything. So don't overthink it. Take the test at face value, and you'll be fine. Okay, a couple of other tips, things that you need to know. The links to complete the psychometric testing will be sent out to everybody at the same time. So on the ad closes on the 17th of July, so the links to the psychometric testing will be sent out on the 18th of July, and you'll have the 4 days through to the 21st of July to complete those 3 tests. So monitor your email regularly, includes your spam and junk folders in case things go there. Expect correspondence on that day. You need to take note of the deadline, so we won't be granting extensions. So we're letting you know these dates now so that you can make arrangements to have free time within that 4-day window to do what you need to do to complete the tests. So get yourself organised and work through what you need to do so that you can participate in the process. Make sure you're well rested, make sure you're not distracted if you need to find a time when no one else is home, or if you've got a room that you can close the door to so that people aren't going to come and have a chat to you in the middle of the test. Get all of that organised before you start. And read all of the information that is given to you. So in all of the instructions and the practice tests, make sure you check your internet connection, all those sorts of things. Then what we'll do, we'll get the results through for all 3 of those assessments, and we will take the candidates who have the highest percentile scores on all 3 of those tests through to the next stage, which will be video interviewing. So this was introduced last year, so if you went through the process last year, you'll have attempted the video interviews. For those that are brand new, maybe it's a new experience. So the video interview, again, it's completed at home online, but you'll get sent a couple of pre-recorded interview questions that you need to respond to, and your response is recorded, and we assess that at the other end. So the questions that you'll be asked are things like your understanding of the organisation, your understanding of the role, why you want to be a firefighter, so your motivation for applying. We'll look at things like your communication through those responses as well, and your overall fit to the role and to the environment. It is a really good chance for you to showcase your passion for the role early in the process. So by this stage, we're still talking thousands of applications. So really take it as an opportunity to engage with the other person watching your response on the other end, because we watch everybody who comes through to the video interview stage. We will assess every response. So this is your chance to really explain why you want the role, how you can add value to fire and rescue, and why we should choose you to move through to the next stage. You can complete at any time within the deadline, within the period that we give you. Again, make sure that you try the practice questions. You'll have a chance to do the practice question as many times as you like. Record yourself so you can see what you look like. It's a bit awkward. No one likes watching themselves back on recordings. I get that. But do the best you can, be yourself, and you'll have your best chance of getting through. With this one as well, really important to note that we're looking for people with a genuine understanding of the role and a genuine interest in the role. So we would much rather hear somebody talk about those things authentically with a few ums and ahs along the way than have somebody read a script that's been pre-prepared or read off of our website. It's absolutely obvious when that happens, and this is about really making sure that we are comfortable that you understand what you're putting your hand up for, all the things that Brett kind of talked about before. So don't feel like you have to be, word perfect. We're actually looking for authenticity and a genuine understanding in what the role is at this point. So if there's a few ums and ahs and stumbles and all the rest of it, don't let that put you off. We understand you're all human and you'll be nervous. That is what we're looking for. So again, monitor your emails. The invitations for the video interview will be sent on the 31st of July. So put that in your diaries. Take note of the deadline provided. You'll have 4 days to complete them again. So it's the 31st of July through to the 3rd of August. We won't give extensions for things like I had to work and I couldn't do it, or I didn't see the email in time. That's on you guys as participants in the process to make sure that you're organised and you know what you need to be receiving. If you have issues, please call us or contact us early so we can help you. Don't leave it to the day before or the day that it closes and then ask for an extension later, because we won't be able to give it to you. Again, presentation matters in these sorts of things. So just have a think about maybe what's in your background and how you present it on that video as well. Ensure you're well rested, distraction free. No one's going to walk through the background or start talking to you in the middle of your recording, because once you hit record, you can't redo it. The practice questions you can, but once you choose to go into the real questions, you've got one chance to answer the response. So just make sure that's all pre-planned and organised. For those who get through to this stage, we'll also, behind the scenes, be looking at your driving records at this point to check things like your demerit point limits and other offences or other things that you might have on your driving record. We need to review by that point as well. So we will be assessing the responses, and then a number of the top performing candidates at that stage will go through to the next assessment, which is the supervised verification tests. So supervised verification tests, you'll need to come into the Fire and Rescue headquarters for these ones. So that's at Greenacre. You'll come in person and you will complete verification versions of all 3 of the online assessments that you did at the beginning. So your cognitive ability, your emotional intelligence and your mechanical reasoning, all 3 of them will be verified. So verification means that they look at the original test score and your verified test score. The test provider will look at things like your processing speed, how many questions you were able to get through, how quickly you tended to answer questions, your overall result, and that gives a verification result of a verified or a not verified within a certain range. You're not expected to get exactly the same score, but there's a sort of like a tolerance range that's looked at. So you must verify all 3 assessments for us to progress you to the next stage. Another reason why, if your sheet at the beginning, if you have somebody else do the tests for you at home, if you have someone sit there assisting you, whatever it is that you were thinking of doing, this is why you shouldn't do that, okay? The supervised tests, they'll be held, as I said, at headquarters, so that'll be between the 24th of August and the 1st of September. So you're only needed on one day. Your time commitment will be about 1.5 hours. You'll book into a session, but those sessions will occur within that date range. So again, another one for your diary. If you've got work commitments, holidays, all those sorts of things, plan around that now so that you can be available. For those who are verified, they will go through to the PAT, which is the physical aptitude test. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Rishi from our health and fitness team, and he will talk to you about all things PAT.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Rishi, and I'm with the health and fitness team with Fire and Rescue. Today I've got the opportunity to talk to you about the PAT, the physical aptitude test, the aim will be to try and bring together some of the really insightful messages and insights that fireys have given you, and try and convey the importance that we place on your health and fitness, and how that relates to the role of being a firefighter, and the background around how the PAT is actually being developed, and what it will involve. So I suppose there's a few anecdotes that I've kind of taken away from the insights that you have heard from some of the fireys today, and it really, I think, highlights why we take health and fitness so seriously. So a couple of anecdotes. No two shifts will be the same, so your game day will be every day, and the loss is not going to be counted in points, and so the aim will be to come home safely. And I suppose to put that into perspective, there's going to be shifts that may require the workload of 3, 4 or 5 PATs. May not be every shift, but you're going to be fatigued. You may have other things going on, think home life, work life, stresses, all those sorts of things that may be going on from a personal perspective. So you may be having a bad day. You may also then be assisting a patient or a casualty that could be having the worst day of their life. And you're going to be required to perform the workload of a PAT. I suppose the take-home message there, and something our team really kind of try and stress to anyone we talk to who's looking at doing a PAT, is you want to be able to do it on your worst day. So we don't look at the PAT as being a personal best or a benchmark that you achieve and perform at once or infrequently. We look at it as being really a bare minimum that anyone should be able to complete on any given day. So I suppose the aim of today is to give you some hard, tangible, measurable facts around the PAT, what it's going to involve, and what it's going to require for you guys to be able to safely and competently complete the test. From a recruitment perspective, the PAT itself is really designed to provide a level playing field. So it's a physical standard that doesn't discriminate. If you can physically get through the task course, doesn't matter your shape or size or anything like that, if you can physically get through the task course, complete the work that's needed to complete each task, you should do well on the day. So as you've probably figured already, having listened to Amy and Greg, the PAT is a non-negotiable part of the recruitment process. It's been scientifically designed and validated and developed in partnership with the University of Wollongong, and it's really been designed with the idea of looking at are you physiologically capable and safe to perform the inherent roles of a firefighter. I'm going to show you and take you through a few videos today that's going to really take you through each part of the pad itself, every task involved, all the 3 stages. And then I'll unpack that a little bit further. And there'll be a few key things that I'll highlight that will really be involved in knowing what to actually be doing and what's going to be part of the actual test. So I'll take
Stage
you through
1,
videos.
reduced visibility search. Firefighting requires firefighters to work in situations where there is limited or no visibility in confined spaces. This task simulates your ability to work in a smoke-filled building wearing a self-contained breathing apparatus, performing a victim search in a dark and confined space. To complete the task, you'll be required to fit a frosted face mask with the assistance of your assessor. The face mask allows normal breathing to occur and will not be connected to an air cylinder. You'll be required to perform a crawling search in a dark and potentially confined space as directed by your assessor. You must be able to wear the mask for the whole search and move forward in a safe and consistent way. Ladder simulation. Firefighting relies on using ladders. This task simulates raising and lowering a 10.5 metre ladder for firefighting and rescue work. To complete the task, position feet shoulder width apart, squat down and with an overhand grip, grasp the bar. Using your legs to lift, raise the bar to navel height. Squat again and move your arms under the bar. Using your legs to initiate the movement, push the bar overhead in one continuous movement until your arms are completely straight. You should be able to push the bar into an overhead position with straight arms in one continuous movement. Stage 2 is made up of 4 tasks. Firefighters generally complete this stage in under 15 minutes. Single-sided jerrycan carry. This task simulates a hazardous materials incident where firefighters repeatedly carry drums, equipment or casualties as a team. To complete the task, grip the jerrycan in one hand, lift it using a half squat and carry it a distance of 195 metres, which is 6.5 laps of the marked 30-metre course. You must complete the full distance while maintaining your balance and perform all lifting and carrying using only one hand at a time. You may swap hands at any time as often as you wish. To swap hands, place the jerrycan on the ground, grip with your other hand and use the squat to lift it before starting again. Do not use 2 hands at any time. You must not drop the jerrycan, drag it, use any part of your body to support the jerrycan, or use 2 hands to complete the carry. Stair climb with single-sided jerrycan carry. Firefighters constantly have to climb stairs with heavy equipment to perform their work. This task simulates climbing stairs with firefighting equipment. To complete the task, grip the jerrycan in one hand, lift it using a squat and step up and down for 36 steps. You may swap sides as many times as you like. To swap sides, place the jerrycan on the ground, grip with the other hand and use a squat to lift it before starting again. At no time should both hands be used to lift or carry the jerrycan. You must not drop the jerrycan, attempt to use any part of your body to support the jerrycan, or use a 2-handed hold at any time. Rescue tool static holds. Firefighters are required to use a variety of equipment to perform their role. This task simulates the use of a rescue tool in a motor vehicle accident rescue. To complete the task, you will hold a set of simulation spreaders at 3 different heights for 40 seconds continuously, with a 20-second break between each height. Shoulder level hold. Grip the rescue tool as shown. Lift it using a squat or lunge. Ensure you have a firm grip and stable stance, then raise it to hold at shoulder height and parallel to the ground. Ensure the tool does not rest on any part of your body and hold it static for 40 seconds. Return the rescue tool safely to the ground using a squat or lunge to lower it. There is a 20-second rest before the next lift. waist level hold. Grip the rescue tool as per the first hold and lift it using a squat or lunge. Ensure the tool does not rest on any part of your body and that your arms are bent and not locked straight. Hold it parallel to the ground at waist level for 40 seconds and then return it safely to the ground using a squat or lunge to lower it. There is a 20-second rest before the next lift. Knee level hold. Grip the rescue tool as per the previous holds and lift them to knee height. Ensure the tool does not rest on any part of your body. Position the shears parallel to the ground and hold for 40 seconds. Return it safely to the ground using a squat or lunge to lower it. During this task, you must not drop the shears or rest them on any part of your body. You should hold the shears parallel to the ground. Repeated hose drag. This task simulates the prolonged dragging of pressurised hose during a bushfire. To complete the task, grip the handle attached to the hose and place the hose over your shoulder. Drag the hose forward, ensuring that your torso is upright and facing forward for the full 30-metre marked course. At the marker, hand the hose to the assessor and walk back to the starting point. This is repeated 5 times. You may swap shoulders with the hose as many times as you wish. If you fall, turn your body side on or face backwards when dragging, you will be stopped and asked to begin that lap again. Your time will not be reset, but will be paused while the hose is repositioned. Remember, should you finish early, you'll not be able to commence stage 3 before 15 minutes. Should you take longer than 15 minutes, you'll be able to progress directly into stage 3. Stage 3. Stage 3 is made up of 2 tasks. Firefighters generally completed this stage in under 2 minutes. Fire attack simulation. Sometimes when fighting a fire, there is a thick layer of smoke in a dwelling. This task replicates dragging a hose while keeping below the neutral plane, the smoke layer, in a structural fire. To complete the task, grip the handle attached to the hose and lower your entire body into a crawling position below the 1.25 metre height marker. Advance forward for a distance of 30 metres, which is 1 lap of the marked course. If you exceed the height, turn your body side on or face backwards when dragging, you will be stopped and asked to begin again. Your time will not be reset, but will be paused while the hose is returned to the start. Firefighter rescue. This task simulates rescuing a firefighter from a structural fire. To complete the task, squat or lunge down, grip the harness straps and move the back plate into a vertical position. Using your legs to lift, stand up while safely lifting the back plate off the ground. Lower yourself below the height marker of 1.55 metres and move backwards for 10 metres, keeping the back plate off the ground. You may stop to adjust your grip. However, you must stay under 1.55 metres and ensure that the back plate is off the ground before you continue. If you exceed the height, fall, drop the back plate or drag the back plate along the ground, you'll be stopped and asked to begin again. Your time will not be reset, but will be paused while the back plate is returned to the start.
Oddy, looking good there, mate. So we've seen all shapes and sizes get through the putt. We've seen plenty of very unassuming people smash their performance through the putt. And equally, we've seen lots of probably some of the fittest or strongest looking people that you might walk past down the street crash and burn. So it is a test that doesn't discriminate. Few key points that you may have missed or I really want to stress to you having watched those videos. Stage 2 has to be completed within 15 minutes and stage 3 has to be completed within 2 minutes. So overall, When you start stage 2, the timer will start. You'll have 17 minutes to complete the whole test. If you don't complete a particular task at any point in time, you won't be able to continue the test. That's where your test will end on the day. The gear that you'll be wearing, so pants, jacket, helmet, the breathing apparatus on your back. You'll be carrying 20 kilos of gear on your person at all times. So from the time you'll start your test, you'll have that 20 kilos of equipment put on you, and that's what you'll be moving, completing each task, carrying on you for the whole duration of the test. The gear itself is really good at keeping you protected from, up to 1,000 degrees of temperature of heat. But equally, it really does a good job of preventing heat from escaping. So we as humans, we're machines. Combusting fuel, burning energy creates a lot of heat. So we as humans create a lot of heat through burning energy and working physically, and that heat stays within the gear that you're wearing. And so carrying loads, you've seen through the videos there, carrying, moving heavy equipment and loads, including what's on your person, is one of the big variables, and equally so, being able to tolerate and manage that heat stress from wearing the equipment is also probably one of the biggest limiting factors that's often overlooked, I suppose, in how someone is preparing for the actual test itself. You've probably heard the word simulation used a few times through the videos. I want to really correct that and take that out of your mind. It's not a simulation per se. The test is really designed to see if you have the strength, the horsepower, the engine to overcome particular loads and complete particular tasks. It's there to see if you have the right mix of physical characteristics to do the job of a firefighter. The technical skills, that's what you'll be taught when you start recruit class, and then when you get out to station and on the job through your career as a firefighter, that's when you'll be learning those technical skills. So the pad is really there to look at the physical characteristics alone. A few numbers. So you would have seen the mechanically braked apparatus there, the fishing reel, the Tiagra 130, I think. So that's the key piece of equipment there that you'll see the hose and the backplate connected to. So the ladder lift, the first task, or in the second task in stage 1, that's designed to really see if you have the strength and the capability to carry the load of the heaviest part of the ladder. So the ladder that you'll find on every truck, on every appliance, weighs about 42 kilos. And that particular task of the pad is there to see if you have the strength to lift the heaviest part of that above your head. We have a calibration tool, a force gauge that really looks at calibrating that tool appropriately so that's consistently applied and relates as closely as possible to the actual ladder itself. So we can demonstrate pretty consistently and pretty clearly that if you're able to apply anywhere from 28 to 30 degrees of force, anywhere from about your chin at any point in time, doesn't matter where you are in that movement, you'll be able to move the ladder task and be able to complete that job. But there's a lot of you could say strength, but preparation that's required for that. So we've seen people apply 28 to 30 kilos of force and get that lift done successfully or competently. Equally, we've seen people try and apply 40, 50 kilos of force and really have a lot of trouble completing that task. So ensuring that you have the right strength and prepare effectively for that task is really important. The jerry cans, so task 1 of stage 2, you'll be carrying a 26 kilo jerry can. So that'll be for the 6.5 lengths. And then for the step-ups, that jerry can will be 17.5 kilos. The rescue tool simulation, so that's been designed to take an average of all the different rescue tools that you'll find on appliances, and that average weight is 19 kilos. So in the videos you would have seen there's a handle that you pick up that tool with. That handle and that arm that you pick up the tool with will be where all the weight is carried. So even though you see people carrying it with, and 2 hands will be interacting with the piece of equipment, all the weight's going through one arm. So if you think you're going to be doing a 40-second bicep curl, which that waist-height hold will be, doesn't matter how strong you are, no one's going to find that easy. Some science there around the interacting with the hose. So mindful of some people really are receptive to some numbers and figures. So the hose advance or the hose crawl, you'll be overcoming 11 kilos of vertical force, so up and down force, and then moving across horizontal, you'll be overcoming 27 kilos of force. The rescue plate carry, that final task, where you'll be taking that rescue plate 10 metres. So when the PAT was designed, they looked at the average firefighter, 80 to 85 kilos was the number. I'm not sure if you guys tell me if that's an accurate reflection. But that's the average number, that's the weight of an average person that the test has been designed against. So in terms of the weight of a person plus the gear that they may be carrying and you're carrying, again, the task has been designed to overcome 30 kilos of vertical force up and down, and then 56 kilos of horizontal force. That's what you'll be working against. So I'm not going to necessarily read all the dot points here. I suppose the take-home message here is that your physical and your medical fitness are really intimately linked. The physical fitness is the thing that you can control. The slides do highlight why that's important, but safe to say, from a physical fitness perspective, if your heart and muscles can't do the work that's needed to actually complete a task or get yourself out of trouble, there could be some really bad consequences. I suppose I really circle back to the first point that I highlighted today, which is that we really stress that your PAT should not be your peak absolute PB effort. Medically, if your heart or you have some other part of your physiology that has a condition that means it could suddenly stop working, that could have even worse consequences, and Brendan will talk about that a little bit further. But these are the important considerations to be aware of and that we're mindful of in designing the PAT. Scope of my chat is around your physical preparation and your physical fitness, and fortunately they're the things that you can control. So in terms of your training and your physical preparation, the vast majority of what's needed you'll find in the FireFit training guide, which is available on the website. When you do read it, or if you have gone through it already, hopefully you have, you'll notice that there's a strong focus on job-specific resistance and cardiovascular training. It's not going to be a bodybuilding guide. Pointed to some of these things earlier, but you're going to be carrying and moving some heavy stuff pretty constantly and pretty consistently. You're going to be getting hot and puffed, and these are all going to happen simultaneously. It's not often that all three of these things are combined into a training program, and these variables are considered when people are looking at their own training plan, and that's one of the key highlights of the training guide itself. Again, going back to some numbers, the old beep test used to be a marker there, and 9.6 was the cutoff. You'll probably appreciate that doing a test that requires you to run and change direction pretty consistently and regularly increase your speed, that's not necessarily very translatable and doesn't really relate very closely to what firefighters will be doing on the job. And so the PAT, for most punters, within the first 3 minutes of stage 2, you'll be reaching a heart rate of about 161 beats per minute, and you'll be turning over about the same amount of oxygen as anywhere from 9+ on the beep test, and you'll be maintaining that for the remainder of the test. The FireFit training guide itself, it will give you a really good basis to look at where you're currently at, and then how to prepare to actually meet the standard of the PAT test itself. I suppose it's really, relevant to highlight that your training is only one part of the equation. Looking at how you're fueling yourself, your nutrition, thinking about your recovery, these are all equally important, if not probably more important, based on the individual, but really looking at yourself as a whole and not just your physical preparation itself and what you might be doing in the gym or your training. They're really important to be mindful of when you're thinking about your preparation, and then even when you come for a PAT on the day. A couple other resources. So you'll find the Train Like a Firefighter videos on the recruitment website, and they also provide a really good insight into firefighters talking about how they go about their training and preparation, fueling and recovery. So at the PAT itself, few key things that I will mention. So recruitment will give you a information sheet and a form to take to your GP. It will explain what it is, the PAT, what it is that you're arriving at the GP for and what the PAT is. And they'll be giving you medical clearance to complete the PAT. It's not going to be, they're not going to be providing you some sort of medical clearance for the role of a firefighter. It's purely to complete and attend the physical aptitude test. You'll be wearing exercise clothing, that includes runners, come well hydrated, and you'll be doing a PAT induction on the same day as your PAT. So on the day itself, you'll be arriving in the morning, you'll all complete a PAT induction together, whoever's been booked in on that day, and then you'll have anywhere from half an hour plus as a leeway time into your PAT. So it's really, I suppose it's really important to highlight that PAT induction. That's a safety briefing for the actual physical aptitude test. It's not designed to give you a practice or a warm up or anything like that for the actual test itself. It's purely a safety briefing and a safety induction before you then complete your test on the day. So a couple final points. We've completed probably 5,000 of these PATs, of the current version of the PAT itself. There's no ranking system, so it's purely a pass-fail test. So whatever time you do has no weighting on how you might compare to other candidates going through the PAT itself. It's purely looked at as a pass or fail, and progression is based on that competency of pass-fail. Show up well prepared. come with the right intentions, and you should do pretty well. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks, Rishi. So those who pass the PAT will then be invited to come along to the assessment centre. So we're getting into the final stages now. So an assessment centre is basically a group of different tasks that you'll do that are designed to assess your behavioural skills, so things like your teamwork, your problem solving, communication, things like that. So these will be run at our headquarters, so you do these in person. This year, the assessment centre, they'll go for 2 to 3 hours, and you'll be asked to do a panel interview, which is an interview with just one panel. You're not moving between multiple panels. A group activity, and also a work styles assessment this year. In all of these activities, you're assessed against predefined criteria that relate back to the role. So you're not necessarily being compared to each other. You're all being compared to the requirements of the role and assessed against those requirements. With the work styles assessment, that will be sent to you to complete at the time you book into the assessment centre. So when you get through to that stage, you'll book into your assessment centre. We'll send you the link to complete that work styles assessment, which you'll do at home, so that those results, we have them by the time you come in to actually do the assessment centre. So the assessment centre itself, once you're there, is then just the panel interview and then the group activity that you do on the day. So the candidates who meet requirements at that point then get put into the pool of successful candidates, which we then draw from to fill recruit classes for the next 12 to 18 months, depending on how many candidates get through, will depend on how long that pool lasts. So assessment centres will be run between the 3rd and 24th of October, so most of October, so don't plan trips in October. A couple of tips for you if you haven't done an assessment centre before, a couple of things to know. In practical activities like group activities, contribution is key. So we don't know anything about you. You need to show us your skills. So if you don't contribute, we don't have any evidence of your skills. If you don't talk and contribute, we can't write anything down. So make sure that you're taking part. Think about the skills that are being assessed. We will tell you before the activities what's being assessed. So have a think about what those skills look like, how you think you can get them across, because that's what we're looking for on the other side of that desk. In the interview, the structure of your responses is key. You can use the STAR method if you want to. It's not compulsory. You won't get marked down if you don't use STAR. But if you need that to help you structure your response, go for it. The main things you need to be aware of when you're answering behavioural interview questions is to make sure you're talking about what you did in your example, why you did it, but most importantly, the how you did it. A lot of people struggle in interviews because they forget the how. They just talk about what they did and not breaking it down into how they did it. So keep the structure of your responses in mind and have a think about some examples that you could use before you go in. So you've heard all of the skills that a firefighter needs with, teamwork, resilience, integrity, professionalism, problem solving, communication. Start thinking about examples of those skills now so you can start preparing the things you want to say. Don't assume that the panel knows anything about you. We need you to articulate what you mean. We don't know what you mean unless you say it. So make sure that you're really clear in getting that across to us. Be yourself at the assessment centres, ask questions if you need to. The whole team will be there to support you and we want you to succeed. So ask questions if you need to. Okay, so at this point, introducing Brendan Mott. Brendan will talk through the pre-employment health and medical assessment information for you.
Okay, thanks, Amy, and great to see so many people here at the information session today. As Amy mentioned, I'll just go through a little bit about the medical assessment process, why we have it in place. I think it's pretty obvious from what everyone's discussed here today, why we would have a medical process in place. We're obviously heavily committed to safety within our community, but even more so, we're heavily committed to the safety of our workforce, and really, I guess in combination with everything else that we do as part of this selection process, the medical process, or the pre-employment health assessment as we call it, forms a very important part of that. Okay, so I guess to answer the question as to why we have it in place, it's quite obvious through what has been discussed here today that the work that firefighters undertake is safety critical. It's conducted in hazardous environments, and I guess from a physiological and a psychological perspective, as you've heard, it can be very, very demanding at times. So it's very important that we, I guess, from a duty of care perspective, make sure that people that we're employing can do the task without a significant risk of injury or illness to themselves. They're unlikely to place others at risk. And then, importantly, that they meet the medical standards associated with other tasks that you might need to perform as a firefighter, such as driving of heavy vehicles. So very important that we look at all those aspects. It's the safety critical element. If there's a condition that leads to sudden incapacity or impairment, you can think of all sorts of scenarios that firefighters might find themselves in, whether that's in a tunnel, in a building. If they go down because of a medical condition or some type of medical event that we potentially could have known about or predicted, then I guess we haven't met our duty of care, and that's really what this process is about. I guess I won't harp on this because it sort of does duplicate a little bit of what Rishi was speaking about, but I guess it's very important that when we consider the inherent requirements of firefighting, that we think about what's going on in the body. From the time the alarm goes off at the fire station, there's a physiological response. All sorts of research that's been done internationally now around the fact that heart rate straight away goes up due to that flight or fight response before you even get into the truck at an incident. The scenes there obviously drive up that response even further. So very important that we're taking those types of flight or fight responses into account. There's then the physical workload, which looks at really the ability of, like Rishi said, the person to deal with the work tasks themselves, but also the demands of the personal protective equipment. And I guess from a heat stress perspective, again, that puts a lot of load on that cardiovascular system. So the leading cause of death of firefighters internationally on duty is actually heart attack. A lot of people think it might be burns or asphyxiation and things like that, but unfortunately, cardiac event is the leading cause of death, and I guess that's a big focus of our screening programs. The environmental conditions, and particularly in the bush firefighting environment, the presence of smoke and other particulates in those environments is something we need to be very mindful of as well. We can't afford our firefighters the same level of respiratory protection during bushfire operations that we can during structural firefighting operations. It's just not practicable for people to be wearing breathing apparatus at a bushfire due to the duration and other factors. So we need to take that into account as well. All right. From a psychological perspective, as we've already heard, firefighters work as part of a team in complex and hazardous environments. And I guess, from a cognitive perspective, a psychomotor function perspective and a resilience perspective, we need to take into account that firefighters need to make time-critical decisions. A lot of the time, people's safety relies on those decisions. We need to be able to, I guess, as firefighters, they need to be able to process and respond dynamically to a lot of sensory information, whether that be sort of visual cues, audio cues, those types of things that are occurring in the environment, and to respond appropriately and dynamically to those types of cues. And then, as we've heard today, there can be definitely challenging events that our firefighters attend. And it's very important that we've got good psychological health underpinning our firefighters so that they can deal with those potentially traumatic events, both at the time of the event, but importantly in the aftermath of the event as well, and bounce back and show that resilience. So I guess they're the key sorts of psychological reasons that we have psychological components to our medical. The medical assessment itself involves a face-to-face assessment with our occupational physician. So we have 3 occupational physicians that work for Fire and Rescue New South Wales. They do their undergraduate medicine degree and then they specialise in occupational medicine, just like a cardiologist will specialise in cardiology. or a respiratory physician will specialise in respiratory health. These are doctors that specialise in occupational medicine, and they're very well versed in what firefighting involves and how people's medical conditions interact with firefighting as an occupation. So the medical assessment paperwork will be provided up by recruitment, and you complete that ahead of your assessment. It basically looks at pre-existing conditions or other types of risk factors that you might have as an individual. And so that's all documented ahead of your actual face-to-face medical. You then have the necessary blood and urine tests, ECG and also spirometry. They are at the candidate's cost, those pathology and spirometry tests. In terms of the medical history documentation relating to any previous conditions or surgeries that you may have had, it's very important that you look to obtain that ahead of time. We don't want to delay the process of you getting into a class just because we haven't prompted you to do that ahead of time. So it is very important. Obtain any current reports you might have from your treating doctors and make sure you have those available at the time of your medical assessment. All right, so I guess this next part really relates to what we're primarily focusing on. As I said, we don't want people to become suddenly incapacitated or impaired in safety critical situations. So that's really what we're focusing on. I guess conditions, such as cardiac conditions, some types of diabetes, epilepsy, those types of things are really big focus areas for us. From a functional perspective, we are interested in screening for things that are likely to be, incapacitating. But given that you've already been through the PAT, all right, there will be an element of screening that's already taken place as far as that goes, but it will be looked at in your medical as well. And importantly, we don't want to make any conditions or injuries you have worse. We want people to be able to have a sustained and long career as a firefighter, and we will screen heavily as well for conditions that might be aggravated. So if anyone's got any questions about specific conditions, then as Mr. Rankin said, make sure that you're sort of asking those questions ahead of time, including today if you want to come and see me at the end. Okay, this is just a little bit around making sure that we don't delay the process any further. I don't want to harp on it about it too much, but make sure that you're getting that documentation ahead of time so we can get you through as quickly as possible. The costs associated with any additional testing for pre-existing conditions that you might bring to the table generally sits with the applicant. But I guess where there are some tests that are required that don't relate to pre-existing conditions, Fire and Rescue will look at those on a case-by-case basis and look at how we support applicants in that regard. But generally speaking, if it's a pre-existing condition, the cost of other specialist consults, etc., will sit with the applicant. Okay, so just some tips to consider. Undertake your pathology testing and your spirometry and ECG as early as you can once you're notified. Don't sit on that paperwork for any longer than you need to. Only use Fire and Rescue referral request forms because otherwise it really limits our ability to go and get that information in a timely way. If you go and get your GP to rewrite something, it's very hard for us to go and then obtain those results, and we need them as quickly as possible to make sure we're getting you into classes. There will be two urine tests. One relates to your pathology testing, the other one is a urine drug screen. So it's important people are aware that there's a urine drug screen associated with your pre-employment medical. I guess before you book in for your pathology, make sure that they can do the urine drug screen. Otherwise, you might have to go to multiple providers. Not every laboratory does that screening. Okay, and then just importantly with your blood tests, make sure you're fasting ahead of time as well so you don't have to repeat them. We do audiology assessment as part of the pre-employment medical, so just avoid exposure to any loud noise for around 16 hours prior to your actual medical assessment. Bring all your available medical documentation, as I've already mentioned. Make sure you fill in every question on the questionnaire. Leaving things blank, again, can create sort of delays in the process as well. In terms of what you wear to the assessment, that'll all be detailed in the paperwork you get, but effectively, don't rock up in a suit and tie to do your medical. It makes things very hard. Get there in your gym gear really is probably the easiest way to think about that. And importantly, contact recruitment if you've got any questions leading into your medical. All right. I'll hand back over to Amy, but as I said, obviously we look at everyone very much on a case-by-case basis when it comes to your medical conditions. If you've got any concerns, then feel free and come and see me today. And by all means, as you're going through the process, ask questions as you go as well, because we want to try and be as transparent and upfront as we possibly can with this process. Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. Okay, I'll be quick with these next slides. There's not too much to talk about at these next stages, and then we'll open it up for some questions for anybody who would like to ask any questions. So the final step is your pre-employment check. So this is things like your reference checks. So we'll ask for 2 referees at this point. We'll do a criminal record check at this stage. We'll do an updated driving record check to make sure there's been no changes. And for anybody who is a New South Wales government employee, we'll do a conduct and service check at that point as well. Then, once you've progressed past all of that and you've ticked all of those boxes, you'll be progressed through and given a formal letter of offer and placed into your recruit class. We try to offer those, send out those letters of offer about 8 weeks prior to the class starting, so that you can, if you need to resign from your existing employment, organise accommodation, whatever you need to do, you've got time to do that. From there, you then go and start your training course. It's a 14-week training course that's run out at the Emergency Services Academy at Orchard Hills, and you are paid as a recruit firefighter for that time at the academy. Then you get to graduate, so they do a ceremony to graduate. You can bring your family and friends along. The commissioner attends that, and you get to formally call yourself a firefighter from that point. So that's it. I mean, that's it. Did you guys want to come up? Maybe Brett, Peter. Any questions? Well, if you want to hang around, we're happy to answer any questions. So just put your hand up if you've got questions. Yep. I have one for Rishi. Yep, Rishi and Brendan, do you want to come up?
Come on up.
Yep, I think it's on. Yep. Yeah, it does. So we'll be instructing you to hold it over your shoulder. Yeah, I'm going to correct those videos. Yeah.
Good attention to detail.
Yeah, well done.
Yep.
Is there any eyesight limitations? Like if you've got glasses or contact lenses, is that a problem?
Vision's something that is assessed, but in terms of limitations associated with glasses, it's something we can accommodate. I guess as an example, people can get prescription glasses actually inserted within their breathing apparatus. So generally, visual impairment is something that has to be quite significant for it to really impact on ability to be employed. So it's, again, looked at generally on a case-by-case basis. I can provide some more detail on exactly how we assess that, if you like. Yep.
Yes, sir.
You spoke of the leave allowances being 14 shifts a year. Are there any extra leave allowances as with other government jobs for those to be reserved?
Yep, so there's parental leave provisions, all the auspices that go with that with any government job. So currently, the other parent of, for child is 14 weeks. So there's lots of other provisions. We also have other little types of leave called consolidated leave and things like that. So there are other leave provisions, yes. So if you do have a a family emergency or anything like that. There's compassionate leave, all those kind of things that come with any government job. So there's definitely lots of leave provisions besides just the annual leave quota. And if you're like me and you get in long enough, you've got long service leave. It goes for a while. Oh, military, yeah, there is military leave, sorry. Yep. Yep.
I was just wondering if you can complete the aptitude test overseas or with overseas at the time that's
So the question was, can you complete the online testing overseas? You could, as long as it's still within that 4 days within our time zone. You could, but the things that are face-to-face, you'll need to be back home for. Yep. But just check you've got good internet and all of that first. Like, don't do it in a cafe or something like that. I wouldn't recommend that.
For the video interview, for those of us who already know that work commitments will make that period like impossible for us to do that, is it possible that might be shifted like left to right?
No.
Sorry.
You need to make arrangements now to be able to participate in the process. Okay, so that won't be until, I think the video interviews were not until early August, 31st of July, I think it was, from memory. So that's why we're giving you those dates now. So all of those dates will be on the website, so you can go back and have a look at them. And the candidate information pack is on there as well.
Online mentions about joint replacements. Anything about reconstruction, shoulder reconstruction?
Yeah, generally speaking, they will be looked at. So it's something that will be asked for more information on. Joint reconstructions, fairly common, within society, particularly in people from an athletics background. So it's not something that is considered to be some type of standard that if you've had one, you can't be a firefighter. They'll look at things like whether there was any associated joint damage, all that sort of stuff. So quite often people might be sent off for an MRI or something like that, just to make sure that the health of the joint is still there, and we're not going to aggravate it by putting you into training, putting you into a career that's very physical in nature. I guess from a shoulder and a knee reconstruction perspective, we employ plenty of people who've had those operations where everything else is looking good.
Just for shifts, is there a set start and finish time for them, or is it just kind of varied within the stations?
No, they all operate from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock the next morning. So that's how the shifts operate. There's a little bit of flexibility there if you want to get another firefighter to come in, but we have a minimum staffing requirement, so someone has to be there at all times, obviously, to respond at any time. Yeah.
How many intake classes are there a year?
Currently, we're at, 8?
6.
6, yeah, sorry. 6, but we're just, you might have seen some stuff in the government announcement about extra firefighters that we've asked to put on, so we're just working through with government there about all of that, but they're currently, the class sizes are 20 at the moment, and that's, equates to about 120 a year, but
How many COVID vaccinations now is fully vaccinated?
2. 2 at the moment. Right, yep.
For someone who's self-employed, is a state emergency service reference acceptable?
Yes, yep, that would be fine. And at the time, if you get through to that stage, you can talk to us about appropriate referees if you aren't sure. So anybody who's self-employed or hasn't had much work experience by that point, we can talk about alternatives to supervisors and managers in paid employment, but that would be fine.
All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. If you've got any more questions that you want to ask of a personal HA, you can come down and see us. I'd just like to thank Brendan, Peter, Brett, Amy and Rishi for coming, and of course the fabulous talent acquisition team over there for all the work they've done putting this presentation, and thanks for your attendance.
Thanks, Greg. And just before you go, just a plug, so careers.fire.nsw, that's the new website. That's where you'll find all of this information, including all your FireFit videos and the FireFit guide as well. And our address, you can contact us at any point throughout the campaign, and you do that through recruitment@fire. So if you want to note them down, feel free to use that. Thank you.